Story 1. The weather report had called it the Arctic Hammer, and for once, the meteorologists hadn't overdramatized. Outside the huge, silent windows of the house, the world was no longer visible. It had been replaced by a chaotic, blinding, and suffocating whiteout that swallowed the Montana hills whole. Elias had been alone for 3 days. His parents, professors at the state university, had left for a conference in Geneva, instructing their 20-year-old son to stay put, keep the generator fueled, and not, under any circumstances, let a single person into the secluded property until they returned on Sunday. Elias had promised, looking forward to the silence and the opportunity to finally finish his thesis draft. But the silence was getting loud. On the first day, it had been liberating. The whole house to himself, music blasting, ramen for every meal. On the second day, the novelty wore off. On the third, the grid went down. It wasn't a flicker or a brownout. It was an instantaneous, deep-seated death of all electric light. The refrigerator hum stopped. The forced air furnace went quiet. The clock on the microwave, a symbol of stable civilization, vanished, leaving behind a black mirror. Elias grabbed his phone. No service. The house was too deep in the valley, and the storm was too heavy. He found the oil lamps and candles first, lighting the downstairs living room and kitchen in a warm, but profoundly unsettling, amber glow. The shadows thrown by the flickering flame were massive and dancing, making the familiar furniture seem like hunched, waiting figures. Then, he went to the mudroom for the key to the generator shed. The air immediately changed. Outside, the wind was a roaring freight train, punctuated by the high-pitched shriek of ice crystals hitting the glass. He managed to fumble the key into the lock and step out. The snow was already past his knees, and the walk to the shed was a battle. He reached the shed, fought the ice off the latch, and finally got inside. The air was thick with the smell of gasoline and oil. He yanked the cord. Nothing. He tried again, harder. Still nothing. The third time, the cord snapped back, stinging his palm, and the engine gave a sickly, dying groan. It was dead. The storm had beaten it. Elias stood there, panting, his flashlight beam trembling over the unresponsive metal casing. He was, in the most literal sense, cut off. The storm was too severe to hike out, and the snow would bury the roads completely by morning. He stumbled back into the house, locking the massive oak door behind him. The sound of the latch clicking was the loudest noise in the sudden, sharp silence that followed his return. He spent the rest of the afternoon gathering blankets, draining the hot water tank for the tub. At least he had potable water and could flush the toilet for a while, and rationing the canned soup. The generator failure meant the well pump was useless. By 8 p.m., the temperature inside the house had dropped visibly. Elias sat hunched by the stone fireplace, the only remaining source of heat, reading a paperback thriller by the light of a single oil lamp. Every creak of the old house, every gust of wind that slammed against the outer wall, was amplified tenfold. He tried to distract himself. It's just the cold contracting the wood. It's the blizzard making everything sound like thunder. Then, the noise came. It wasn't the wind. It was a distinct, sharp thump from the second floor. Elias froze, the book sliding onto the hearth. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic, disorganized beat. Rats. Gotta be rats. Dad always said they get loud when it's this cold. But this house was solid, modern construction. There were no rats. And the sound hadn't been a scurry. It was the heavy impact of something being placed or dropped. Silence. Only the wind. Elias gripped the lamp, its metal handle already sweating in his palm. He had a hunting knife in the kitchen drawer. He should go get it. But moving meant admitting the thump wasn't a lie of the wind. He waited 5 minutes, his neck muscles tensing until they ached. Just as he convinced himself it was nothing, it happened again. Thump, scrape. This time, the sound originated not from the main hallway, but directly above him, in the master bedroom. It sounded like something heavy being dragged across the hardwood floor. Slow. Deliberate. Elias stood up, knocking the blanket to the floor. Hello. His voice was a pathetic croak, absorbed immediately by the vast darkness that surrounded the pool of lamplight. He picked up the lamp and moved to the staircase, climbing the steps slowly. The stairs, usually solid, complained loudly under his weight. He held the lamp high, illuminating a small segment of the second-floor landing at a time. The air here was noticeably colder, carrying a faint, musty scent, like old wool or wet earth. He stopped outside the master bedroom door. It was closed. He pushed the door open. The room was vast and dark. Snow had begun to sift in through the crack of the window. It hadn't been properly latched. He could see a small drift of white powder forming on the plush carpet. The dragging sound had stopped. He held the lamp out. Nothing. The room was untouched. He checked the closet, the attached bathroom. Empty. Relief hit him with such force it almost buckled his knees. He laughed, a shaky, nervous sound. The wind must have pulled the window open and knocked something down. Case closed. He secured the latch and jammed a pillow against the crack for good measure. As he turned to leave, he saw it. On his parents' pristine white bedside rug, there was a track. Not a footprint, but a smear of dark, wet earth, as if something with a wide, flat underside had been dragged from the far wall, across the rug, and into the shadow of the bed. Elias didn't breathe. He focused the lamp beam onto the stain. It was definitely dirt, not mildew or discoloration. Fresh, dark, muddy dirt, mixed with a hint of red-brown. He backed away, slowly, until the door frame pressed into his spine. The only thing he could think was the key to the generator shed. He'd locked it before he left. But he hadn't noticed any tracks in the snow leading away from it. Then, the sound came from downstairs. It was the main door latch, the one he had secured so carefully, being quietly, slowly, unlatched. The wind stopped howling. The world outside went entirely silent, as if holding its breath. Elias plunged down the stairs, adrenaline blinding him. He reached the bottom and spun around, holding the lamp high. The front door was still closed. The bolt was still secured. But sitting on the welcome mat, directly inside the door, was a single, large, muddy, black boot. It was soaking wet, clearly having been dragged through heavy snow, and the laces were dangling, undone. Elias didn't move. He stared at the boot. It hadn't been there when he came in from the generator shed. It couldn't have. He would have noticed it. If the boot was inside, the person who wore it had to be inside, too. He felt the hairs on his arms rise, not just from the cold, but from the raw, terrifying logic of the situation. The lock was untouched. The windows were sealed. How had a boot been placed there? He heard a soft, scraping noise from the kitchen. He turned, lamp shaking, and saw the faint outline of a shadow against the wall between the dining room and the kitchen doorway. It was a person-shaped shadow, elongated and distorted by the single, weak light source. The shadow moved. It wasn't running. It was gliding, like a piece of paper being drawn along by a thread. Panic overwhelmed all rational thought. Elias screamed, a short, strangled noise, and turned to flee. He ran for the back hall, looking for the utility closet where his father kept the emergency axe. He threw open the closet door and fumbled inside, his fingers sliding across old coats and tools. A muffled, high-pitched giggle echoed down the hallway. It was close. Too close. He found the axe handle, cold and heavy in his hand. He yanked it free and turned, lifting it defensively. The shadow was standing at the end of the hall. It was taller than any man, distorted by the lamplight, and it was watching him. "Get out!" Elias shouted, his voice cracking. The shadow didn't speak. It just took a slow, deliberate step forward, emerging slightly from the gloom. Elias couldn't see a face, only the dark, heavy outline of a figure wearing what looked like a soaking wet, bulky winter coat. And then he saw the hands. They were pale, almost luminous in the dark, and they were clutching a child's worn, wooden rocking horse, the kind his mother kept in the attic for sentimental reasons. The figure lifted the rocking horse. Slowly. Then, with a casual, sickening motion, it slammed the horse down on the hardwood floor. Thwack. And then, the figure began to rock itself in place, dragging the wooden horse across the floor, back and forth, scrape. Thump. Scrape. Thump. It was the noise from the master bedroom. It was the sound of someone playing a perverse, silent game with a broken toy, deep inside a freezing, dead house. Elias backed up until he hit the wall. He gripped the axe, tears of pure terror blurring his vision. He knew, with absolute certainty, that this thing had not broken in. It had been here, waiting, long before the storm. It had just needed the darkness and the silence to start its game. He lifted the axe, prepared to swing, when the sound stopped. The figure lowered the rocking horse. Its pale hands reached up and, with a slow, tearing sound, began to pull the heavy coat away from its own shoulders. Elias didn't wait to see what was underneath. He didn't want to know if it was skin, or wood, or just the endless, deep, terrifying white silence of the snow itself. He dropped the lamp, plunging the hall into utter darkness. He heard the sound of glass shattering and the oil catching fire. Elias threw himself sideways through the nearby laundry room door, smashing the window with the back of the axe, and dove headfirst into the raging blizzard, choosing the certain death of the Arctic wind over the waiting horror in the dark of his own home. Behind him, the flames flickered in the hall, and through the broken glass, Elias heard the creature finally speak. It was a deep, guttural whisper, laced with the hiss of wind and ice. Found you. Story 2. The Static Watch. The summer fires had been brutal, but the winter isolation was worse. For 6 months, Elias Vance had accepted the contract to maintain the remote Fire Lookout 47 in the Cascade Mountains. The pay was good, and the solitude was supposed to be a detox from the relentless noise of the city. He'd signed the papers expecting peace. He found paranoia wrapped in ice. It was January 14th, and Elias hadn't seen another living soul, human or animal, in nearly 3 weeks. The snow had piled higher than the service shed, turning the 100-foot-tall steel tower into a glass island floating above a boundless, frozen ocean. His only link to the world was a battered, non-networked radio, the kind used for forestry communication, and the periodic whump of the wind generator mounted on the roof, which provided just enough power to keep the single, powerful spotlight running. On day 68, the radio started whispering. It wasn't a voice at first, just an unusual quality to the static. The snow, the cold, the sheer vertical distance between the tower and the valley floor, all these things usually produced a clean, white hiss. Now, the hiss had texture. It sounded like sand pouring into a bowl. Elias had been monitoring the frequency, listening for the daily weather report he knew wouldn't come. He frowned, leaning closer to the speaker. CHKKK, CHKKK, SSSHHHHHH. It sounded almost rhythmic, like breathing. He flicked the frequency knob, trying to tune past it, but the sound followed him, a low-frequency hum vibrating just beneath the audio range. He convinced himself it was interference, some atmospheric anomaly due to the extreme cold. He tried to ignore it and went back to organizing the massive map board, circling the potential hot spots he wouldn't need to worry about for another 4 months. That night, Elias was sitting in the tower's cramped, glass-walled cabin, bundled in 3 layers of wool, drinking lukewarm coffee. The only light source was the dull red glow of the gauges and the external spotlight, which painted a bright, sterile circle on the immediate snowpack below. The radio crackled, louder this time. Elias grabbed the headset. "Lookout 47, do you read?" he said into the mic, hopeful. No reply, only the textured static, which now seemed to pulse, matching the slow, relentless rotation of the wind generator outside. Then, the static resolved itself. Not into words, but into a tone. It was a single, flat, continuous note, like a low cello string being bowed. It wasn't loud, but it penetrated the stillness, filling the cabin with a resonant dread. Elias yanked the receiver off the hook. Silence returned, thick and absolute. He stared at the radio, his mind running wild. What kind of signal was that? A beacon? A distress call? He cautiously replaced the receiver. The note immediately started again. Elias spent the next hour flipping the circuit breaker for the radio, checking the grounding wires, and even covering the antenna with a spare tarp, all to no effect. The sound persisted, a signal that seemed to originate not from the airwaves, but from the tower itself. By 2 a.m., exhaustion and dread had peaked. Elias tried to sleep in the folding cot wedged behind the plotting table, but the low, mournful tone kept him awake. He thought, maybe it's my brain, filling the void. Maybe I've been alone so long the silence is making me hallucinate. He got up and walked to the main window. He stared down at the circle of light below the tower. The snow was untouched, pristine, deep blue in the night. Just as he was about to turn away, he saw a change in the snowpack. In the dead center of the spotlight's circle, a depression appeared. It was shallow at first, then deepened, forming a perfect, smooth bowl shape, as if a massive, invisible hand was pressing down on the snow from above. The cello note from the radio suddenly became a shrieking whine. Elias stumbled back from the window, his breath hitching in his chest. He looked back down. The depression wasn't just there, it was moving. It was dragging slowly across the circle of light, a perfectly defined, oval pressure mark, about 6 feet long, leaving a smooth, compacted trail in the powder. It was something heavy, moving along the ground, just outside the tower's foundation. Elias grabbed the binoculars and pressed them against the cold glass, focusing on the dark shadows beneath the tower base. He saw nothing but the thick, frozen steel supports. The moving depression paused directly beneath the cabin. He felt the tower shudder. It was a deep, low vibration that rattled the glass in its frames and made the metal floor groan beneath his boots. And then, the radio spoke. It wasn't the cello tone anymore. It was a rapid, high-frequency stream of noise. Not static, not words, but a sound like thousands of insects skittering across a sheet of metal. And woven through that sound, clear and unmistakable, was a series of quick, wet clicks. Click, click, click. Elias realized the clicks were coming from the microphone. The thing on the ground wasn't talking into the radio. It was manipulating the microphone in the cabin. He spun around. The cabin was tiny. There was nowhere to hide. The microphone was hanging from its coiled cord by the plotting table, and it was swinging gently, barely perceptibly. As it swung, the plastic head knocked against the metal edge of the table. Click. The moment the mic head hit the metal, the clicking sound amplified on the radio frequency. Elias stood paralyzed. The microphone was being controlled. He looked back at the glass. The movement in the snow was gone. The tower had stopped shaking. Elias cautiously took a step toward the radio. Click, 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 click. The noise was frantic now. It sounded like a demand. The tower lights, which were dim due to the wind generator slowing, suddenly surged. The generator was spinning fast, too fast. The spotlight outside flared, burning white hot, and then, with a sharp, explosive pop, it died. The world outside the glass became pitch black. Elias was in total darkness, illuminated only by the faint red glow of the dials. He could hear the wind generator howling like a banshee as it struggled under the strain. Then, he heard the faint, high sound of scraping metal. It was coming from below the cabin floor. Not outside, but inside the hollow chamber of the tower structure itself. Elias crept toward the floor hatch, the emergency exit that led down the central ladder well. He didn't dare open it. The scraping became louder, dragging, like a heavy, blunt tool being pulled up the inside of the support beam, getting closer and closer. He felt a deep sense of wrongness. The thing hadn't been moving on the snow. It had been moving through the snow. And now, it was climbing the structural supports of the tower, protected from the elements. He backed away, trying to feel for the fire extinguisher near the door, when he heard a new, terrifying sound, the sharp, metallic ping of a latch being unfastened. The sound came from the exterior ladder hatch, the one bolted shut 90 feet below him. The thing was opening the tower from the outside. He stumbled into the cot, knocking the plotting map to the floor. He fumbled for his emergency signal flare, his hands slick with sweat. Then, from the darkness, the radio crackled one last time. This time, it wasn't static. It wasn't a tone. It was a perfect, crystal clear human voice, male, close enough to be whispering into his ear. "You're disrupting my frequency." The voice had no echo. It sounded flat, unconcerned, and utterly devoid of humanity. Elias threw the flare against the window in a desperate, panicked action. The blast of red light blinded him, the glass holding firm. When his vision cleared, he saw a face pressed against the glass. It was directly outside the window, mere inches away, illuminated crimson by the flare. It was pale, featureless, with vast, black, lidless eyes that reflected the red light like pools of oil. It was wet, covered in a slimy film that looked like frozen dew. It wasn't wearing a coat. It wasn't even human. The thing opened its mouth, and instead of a scream or a roar, the low, terrifying cello note poured out, vibrating the glass until it groaned. Elias didn't wait. He scrambled to the floor hatch, threw back the bolt, and plunged himself into the freezing darkness of the ladder well, descending into the heart of the metal tower as the glass began to shatter above him. He was trapped inside the vessel, and the thing that had been climbing from below was now above him, descending. He had disrupted its frequency, and now, it was going to reclaim its silence. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment and turn on notifications if you enjoyed the video so you never miss an upload.